Candace Owens, a voice of courage and truth. Today we'll uncover her remarkable journey of faith, purpose and transformation, including her political awakening and conversion to Catholicism. In a world that often avoids tough conversations, Candace stands as a powerful voice, encouraging thought and challenging assumptions. Read on, because this story will leave you motivated and ready to take on anything. Her story reminds us that faith and resilience can lead to profound personal and social transformation. Candace Owens describes her journey as beginning in politics and leading to faith, a transition that profoundly shaped her worldview. Through her early political experiences, she began to see the importance of questioning narratives and seeking deeper truths. This critical thinking played a pivotal role in reshaping her beliefs. She often recounts how her initial exposure to political rhetoric opened her eyes to the power of media influence. As she delved deeper, analyzing policies and their impacts, Candace realized that many of her previous assumptions were based on emotional appeals rather than facts. This realization not only shifted her perspective but also strengthened her resolve to think independently. By engaging with statistics and exploring conservative thinkers, Candace gained new insights that challenged her previous convictions. This intellectual journey, rooted in her political awakening, ultimately led her to a deeper understanding of faith and her own values. From a young age, Candace Owens demonstrated a personality that set her apart from other children. While most kids readily obeyed their parents when told, "Do this because I said so," or "Do this, or Santa won't come," Candace was different. She would often respond, "Well then tell Santa not to come." This attitude left her parents frustrated, especially when they were asking her to do something as simple as cleaning her room. However, Candace's reaction was not out of anger or defiance. Instead, she wanted logical explanations and disliked following arbitrary rules without clear reasoning. Even as a toddler, Candace showed an innate ability to question and challenge authority when it seemed unfounded. This characteristic became a defining trait in her life, shaping who she would become in the years ahead. Candace Owens showed an independent and critical mindset from a very young age. Even at 3 years old, she questioned arbitrary reasons. When asked to clean her room with the explanation that Santa Claus would come down the chimney and bring presents, she immediately challenged the logic and refused to accept it without a proper explanation. During her early years, her grandparents played a pivotal role in shaping her foundational values. While living with them, mornings began with Bible reading and discussions as part of the family's daily routine. Her grandfather, deeply devoted to his faith, turned these sessions into meaningful lessons. With her naturally competitive spirit, Candace eagerly tried to answer scripture questions accurately, striving to outperform her siblings to win the small prizes her grandfather would give. These moments provided her with a strong base for critical thinking and evaluating values. However, as Candace entered her teenage years, what she refers to as mile 7 of life, she began feeling the pressure to fit in socially. The desire to be cool and accepted by her peers led her to feel embarrassed by her grandparents' devout faith and constant references to God and the Bible. Instead of embracing her family's traditions, she distanced herself from them and her faith, prioritizing social acceptance in her school environment. Despite this temporary detachment, the strength and critical thinking skills she developed under her grandparents' guidance quietly continued to shape her character. Those early lessons, though set aside for a time, formed the foundation for her later personal and ideological growth. Candace's story is not only one of self-discovery but also of reconnecting with the lessons of her childhood and applying them to her life's journey. Candace Owens recalls mile 7 of her life as a time when she was highly confident, self-assured, and eager to develop as a critical thinker. However, by the time she reached mile 15, a phase encompassing her university years, and the beginning of adulthood, she began to encounter significant challenges and contradictions. During this period, Candace, like many others educated in the public school system, absorbed liberal ideals and believed she was on the right path. As a black woman, she also felt societal expectations to align with left-leaning perspectives. However, as she entered the real world, she started to notice discrepancies between the ideals she had been taught and the realities she faced. Concepts like everything can be free, which once seemed appealing, lost their luster when she began to understand how taxes worked and their tangible effects on daily life. Financial struggles were a critical turning point. With 6 figures in student loan debt, Candace felt an overwhelming burden as she tried to figure out how to pay it off with her modest salary. This stark reality led her to question the beliefs she had previously held. She describes this as a pivotal moment in her journey, prompting her to seek new insights and critically examine the narratives she had once accepted as truth. In 2015, Candace Owens, like many others, watched as Donald Trump descended the escalator to announce his presidential candidacy. Instantly, she felt uneasy and strongly opposed the idea of him becoming the leader of the United States. With a background in journalism, she had been taught that sources like the New York Times and CNN were the gold standard for truth and reliability. At the time, opposing Trump seemed entirely logical to her. However, as media coverage of Trump unfolded, Candace noticed something strange. Instead of criticizing him based on reasonable arguments, such as his background in reality TV or his unpolished speaking style, the media resorted to more extreme accusations. Trump was labeled a racist, a sexist, a misogynist, and some outlets went as far as claiming that if he were elected, black people would be sent back into slavery. This narrative puzzled Candace. She began to sense that the media's portrayal wasn't just about sharing information, but was designed to manipulate emotions. She questioned whether the media's approach was entirely honest. This moment marked a turning point, leading her to decide to listen to one of Trump's speeches directly to form her own opinion. In that speech, Trump addressed issues in the black community, asking, "Black America, what do you have to lose?" The statistics he shared on crime rates and poverty were accurate and prompted her to reflect further. Gradually, Candace's perspective began to shift. The stark contrast between what she had heard from the media and what she discovered on her own led her to embark on a deeper journey of exploration. This journey sparked a series of questions about politics, the media, and the underlying motives behind the narratives she had once accepted without question. She realized that to uncover the truth, she needed to seek out information independently and reconsider viewpoints she had previously dismissed without examination. Candace Owens once placed immense trust in major media outlets like the New York Times and CNN, having been taught during her journalism studies that these were the ultimate sources of truth. However, a turning point occurred when she decided to watch a speech by Donald Trump to evaluate his words directly. In that speech, Trump presented accurate statistics about the Black American community, addressing issues like crime and poverty, and posed the question, "Black America, what do you have to lose?" This caught Candace's attention and made her reflect. What shocked her even more was how the media distorted and misrepresented the speech, portraying it in a completely different light. This realization led her to question the reliability of the media she had once trusted. Her growing doubt sparked a significant internal conflict as she began to ask herself, could I actually be a conservative? This marked what she referred to as mile 18 of her life, a challenging period of cognitive dissonance. She started to recognize that the values she had been taught to reject, like free markets and capitalism, were not as extreme as she had been led to believe. those who supported these principles were often mischaracterized by the very media she once relied on. Driven by curiosity, Candace began exploring further, albeit cautiously at first. She felt embarrassed as she quietly read articles from sources she previously dismissed, fearing judgment from friends and family. Yet the more she delved into these perspectives, the more she uncovered a reality starkly different from what she had been told. This growing awareness transformed her cognitive dissonance into a thirst for knowledge. She began reading the works of authors like Dr. Ben Carson, Clarence Thomas, and Thomas Sowell. Sowell, in particular, profoundly impacted her, presenting economic arguments that resonated deeply and clarified many misconceptions. Through this process, Candace Owens came to terms with how significantly she had been misled by media narratives. What began as disillusionment turned into empowerment as she found a renewed sense of purpose and clarity in her worldview. Candace Owens shares that one of the greatest truths she discovered on her journey is the importance of free markets and the dangers of socialism. To her, free markets are not just an economic system but the foundation for opportunity and individual freedom. Candace believes that those who seek to limit or dismantle free markets are essentially working to strip people of their freedom and push society into dependency on the state. She explains that for many young people, socialism appears to be an attractive solution, a system where everything is free and no one gets left behind. However, she realized that these ideals don't reflect reality. Through her research, Candace came to understand that socialism does not create equality, but instead increases injustice and stifles creativity and human potential. Candace emphasizes that free markets encourage innovation, entrepreneurship, and self-reliance, whereas socialism, in her view, leads to dependence and control. She argues that socialism does not truly liberate people, but instead enslaves them by trapping them in a cycle of reliance on government aid and programs. She points out that the uncomfortable truth many refuse to acknowledge is this: without free markets, individual freedom cannot exist. Through her speeches, Candace delivers this message to students and younger audiences, especially those with opposing perspectives. She encourages them to ask questions and consider the long-term consequences of socialist policies, while recognizing that true freedom comes when individuals have the ability to make decisions for their own lives without government interference. For Candace Owens, defending free markets is not just a political mission, but also a personal one. She sees it as a way to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to grow and achieve their full potential without being constrained by the limitations imposed by socialist systems. The media has an undeniable power to shape narratives and influence public sentiment, often constructing belief systems that resonate deeply with certain groups. This phenomenon, described by some as a modern form of paganism, is seen when individuals place unwavering faith in ideologies or causes, treating them with a near-religious fervor. Climate change, racial justice, and other high-profile issues often evoke this kind of response, where emotions override critical thinking. A striking example occurred following the death of George Floyd, an event that galvanized public emotions and sparked a surge of activism. In the wake of this tragedy, narratives emerged that discouraged debate or alternative perspectives. Those who questioned the dominant story risked being labeled insensitive or even antagonistic. This climate of fear and division stifled discussion, but it also prompted a counter-response. Some voices challenged the media's framing, emphasizing the importance of context and facts. These efforts revealed the risks of unchecked narratives, showing how they could be used to deepen societal divisions or undermine foundational institutions like the family. As the debate continued, a broader realization emerged. Strong family structures and critical thinking are essential for resisting manipulative narratives. Without these anchors, society becomes more vulnerable to ideologies that prioritize division over unity, leaving individuals caught in a cycle of emotional and ideological engineering. This underscores the need to approach such issues with both skepticism and a commitment to preserving core societal values. Candace Owens shared that in the final stretch of her life's marathon, she noticed a significant change in her husband. As a Catholic, he had grown more deeply connected to his faith, attending Mass daily. For Candace, a Protestant, this was perplexing. She couldn't understand why attending church on Sundays wasn't enough. Her curiosity grew as she observed him. Why is he waking up so early for Mass every day? What's going on with him? She wondered. This curiosity led her to start conversations with her husband, trying to understand his journey of faith. He explained that he had converted to Catholicism during university after studying theology. One statement of his stood out and stayed with her. To become a student of history is to become a Catholic. This remark challenged Candace and piqued her interest. Was he suggesting she wasn't a student of history? She had always considered herself educated, but this statement made her question what she might have missed. Driven by a desire to understand, Candace began asking questions. She probed him about Catholic traditions, questioning the veneration of Mary, the use of religious objects, and practices she had been taught to see as idolatrous. She admitted to bringing up all the typical Protestant talking points, yet her husband patiently explained the meanings and significance behind these practices. What started as skepticism gradually turned into genuine curiosity. Candace found herself drawn to her husband's perspective, even if she didn't fully comprehend it at the time. Her growing interest led her to invite her husband to join her on her show to discuss his faith journey. She wanted to hear more about what had led him to Catholicism and what continued to draw him deeper into it. The discussions not only deepened her understanding of his beliefs, but also left her with a desire to learn more about a faith that had transformed her husband so profoundly. Candace Owens has shared a pivotal moment in her faith journey, marking her transition from Protestantism to Catholicism. Her story is not just a personal narrative, but also a reflection of the deeper dialogue between culture, politics, and religion in American society. The debate between Candace's Catholic husband and Ali Stuckey, representing Protestantism, was a starting point. The discussion focused on the core tenets of the two faiths. Protestantism was portrayed as emphasizing personal relationships with God, freedom in interpreting the Bible, and adaptability to individualism in American society. Catholicism, on the other hand, highlighted tradition, theological consistency, and the Church's role in preserving truth over centuries. American society, where Protestantism has flourished, is characterized by individualism and liberalism. This is reflected in the proliferation of thousands of Protestant denominations, which Candace later began to see as more a feature of American culture than a theological truth. The most transformative moment came when Candace read a comment from a stranger named Jose. The comment argued that Protestantism is not just a religious movement, but also a product of history and political culture. Jose suggested that the freedom to create various Protestant denominations mirrors American ideals of liberty, but it also raises questions about theological authenticity and consistency. He further noted that Protestantism emerged at a time when Northern European powers sought a political tool to challenge the authority of the Catholic Church. This comment forced Candace to confront her assumptions and ask questions she had never considered about her beliefs. She realized that much of the anti-Catholic rhetoric she had internalized was repetitive and lacked original thought. Candace Owens's shift from Protestantism to Catholicism was not the result of a single debate or comment, but rather a reflection of broader cultural and historical influences. Her story illustrates how societal and historical factors can shape personal beliefs and underscores the importance of self-reflection and the pursuit of truth. Candace Owens reflected on her experiences with the public education system, which she criticized for shaping young minds with divisive ideologies. She believed it intentionally instilled narratives that pitted Black Americans against white Americans, fostering conflict under the guise of race relations. To her, classrooms had become propaganda centers where ideologies like feminism, anti-masculinity, and transgenderism were aggressively promoted, leaving little room for independent thought. This realization made her question whether the anti-Catholic sentiment she had adopted during her education was another distortion of truth. As she delved deeper, Candace began to question the history she had been taught. Her exploration led her to discover lesser-discussed aspects, such as the atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki, a predominantly Catholic city, where the blast destroyed areas near praying Catholics. While she didn't claim it was a conspiracy, she found it strange that this detail was rarely mentioned in historical narratives. Her curiosity extended to the Middle Ages, often labeled the Dark Ages, which she suspected was a subtle critique of Catholic influence during that era. These discoveries challenged her previous understanding of history and motivated her to seek answers beyond the frameworks she had once trusted. Through her journey, Candace grappled with the idea that much of what she had been taught might have been intentionally skewed. This growing awareness sparked a thirst for real knowledge, driving her to question established narratives and search for truths that aligned more closely with her own observations and beliefs. Candace Owens began to notice a stark difference between what she was taught about Catholicism in school and the historical truths she discovered on her own. She shared how events like the Spanish Inquisition or the Crusades were often presented with a clear bias, leaving students with a negative impression of Catholicism. This realization led her to question whether these misrepresentations were accidental or a deliberate effort to distort the perception of Catholicism in education. Feeling unsettled, she was driven to explore further and uncover the truth. She came to understand that much of the history she had been taught was a skewed version, designed to promote a negative narrative about the Catholic faith. These discoveries not only changed her perspective on history, but also ignited a strong desire to seek deeper understanding and uncover the realities hidden behind these distorted historical accounts. Candace Owens joined a remarkable pilgrimage in Paris, where 50,000 people from around the world came together to walk 66 miles over 2.5 days, carrying only what they could fit in their backpacks. Before the journey began, she met with her group of 20, led by Father Witos, a dedicated priest from Australia. Father Witos not only guided the group but also served as a spiritual leader, leading Latin prayers throughout the trek. The pilgrimage began with a solemn mass in the heart of Paris, after which the groups embarked on their journey. Leading the way were the French Boy Scouts, an impressive cohort with unwavering stamina and discipline. They carried the flag of Saint Joseph and chanted Latin prayers in unison, creating an atmosphere both reverent and energizing, reminiscent of warriors preparing for battle. At the start of the journey, Candace, unfamiliar with Latin prayers, found herself trying to keep up, gradually immersing herself in the rhythm and spirit of the group. The first 7 miles were smooth, with Candace feeling confident and thinking the walk wouldn't be too challenging. However, the real test came at mile 15. The group reached a large, sun-drenched field for a lunch break. Participants shared bread from cardboard boxes distributed by organizers and ate what they had brought. Father Witos played a key role in maintaining the group's morale, encouraging everyone to persevere despite the blistering heat and fatigue. Although Candace felt too exhausted to eat, she realized the profound significance of the journey, not just physically, but spiritually, as it fostered unity and resilience among the participants. Candace Owens recalls an unforgettable journey filled with comical and absurd moments. Her husband and the French Boy Scouts, like survival artists, laid out an impromptu feast of cheese, croissants, salami, and even a mysterious concoction called pork butter. While Candace hesitated, questioning the very existence of such a food, her husband dove right in, as if auditioning for a cooking show in the wilderness. The real adventure began at mile 18, when torrential rain turned the trail into a mud wrestling arena. Participants, resembling exhausted warriors from a medieval battle, started tapping out one by one, curling up under foil blankets. Meanwhile, the French Boy Scouts looked like action heroes from a blockbuster movie. They darted back and forth through the mud, whistling and carrying stretchers, as if the chaos only fueled their enthusiasm. Candace couldn't help but marvel. How are they still running and whistling? Are they part human, part superhero? By mile 22, Candace felt like a statue stuck in place. Her legs refused to cooperate, and her mind wandered to existential thoughts about wills, family, and whether her husband might be able to carry her the rest of the way. When she asked him what he was thinking, he simply sighed and quipped, "Can you imagine doing this in full medieval armor?" That witty remark made her laugh out loud, breaking through her exhaustion. Despite the mud, the rain, and her overwhelming fatigue, Candace found the strength to keep going. And the image of the French Boy Scouts whistling cheerfully through the muck, that will forever remain one of the most ridiculous and inspiring memories of her journey. Candace Owens recounted a transformative pilgrimage that tested her physical endurance and spiritual resolve. Early in the journey, she discovered how challenging the experience would be. Isolated in the countryside, she and her husband faced the realities of their commitment. A humorous moment arose when her husband received a text from a priest at home, jokingly asking if she had divorced him yet, a light-hearted comment that underscored the intensity of the pilgrimage. The journey reached its most difficult phase during the final 4 uphill miles. Exhausted and feeling physically depleted, Candace confided in Father Witos that she feared she might collapse. His surprising response, that a pilgrim had died on that very hill the previous year, was both sobering and motivational. Passing a memorial cross for the fallen pilgrim, she questioned her ability to continue, but resolved to push forward. Upon reaching the camp, she experienced a profound sense of achievement. The sight of others arriving and the collective relief of completing the day's journey filled her with pride and gratitude. However, as she lay in bed that night, she was struck by the daunting realization that the journey was far from over and would continue the following day. This pilgrimage became a metaphor for her broader life journey, teaching her the value of perseverance and the importance of confronting difficult truths. Over time, she came to understand a deeper reality. Many societal conflicts are not merely political, economic, or cultural, but fundamentally spiritual. She recognized that much of the unrest in the world stemmed from an attack on Christ and the principles of faith. This realization solidified her commitment to addressing these deeper issues, even when it required personal sacrifice or challenged societal norms. Candace Owens shared a pivotal moment in her life when she had to choose between keeping everything as it was or stepping forward to speak about Jesus Christ. At that time, her life seemed perfect, a happy husband, joyful children, and everything under control. But deep down, she knew that standing up for her faith would change everything. The more I thought about it and studied history, I realized I couldn't choose the easy path. For me, there was no other option, she said. She was fully aware of the cost of this decision. I knew it was going to bring pain. I knew I'd face media attacks, smears, and even 3,500 emails from trolls trying to stop me, she recounted. Yet, instead of fear, Candace responded with a smile. They don't understand Catholics. Candace went on to describe the final day of her journey, a day that left an indelible mark on her. The last 16 miles felt insurmountable, but when she saw the distant spires of the cathedral, she was overwhelmed with strength. Those spires weren't just a symbol of the church, they were a reminder of faith and resilience, she said. The story shared by the priest at the cathedral resonated deeply with her. During World War II, the cathedral narrowly escaped destruction due to false intelligence that Nazis were hiding inside. A Christian American general, doubting the order to destroy it, volunteered to cross enemy lines. He entered the cathedral and rang its bell, proving there were no Nazis inside. His courage saved the cathedral, allowing it to stand tall to this day. For Candace, this story was a profound reflection of her own journey. I realized that sometimes faith and courage are all you need to face the greatest challenges. What I'm up against now is nothing compared to the will of those who came before me, and I know that with faith, I too can stand strong, she declared with determination. Candace Owens shared a deeply memorable experience from her spiritual journey, describing a time when she felt completely drained and numb after 3 days of intense challenge. By the third day, she even joked about feeling like her hair hurt, comparing it to spraining your hair. Despite the exhaustion, she experienced a transformative moment during a Latin Mass in a small French town. In that sacred setting, surrounded by French citizens holding their children and joining together in prayer, she was overwhelmed with emotion. The powerful unity of the community and the solemn Latin prayers revealed to her the profound significance of the Church's identity as one, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. For Candace, this moment was an awakening. She realized she had finally discovered the only battle that truly mattered, the fight for faith and salvation. Everything else in her life felt secondary to this newfound purpose. That feeling of clarity and conviction became a cornerstone of her spiritual journey, one she would carry forward with humility and determination. Candace Owens' story has truly inspired me. It's not just the personal journey of someone finding her faith, but a testament to the power of perseverance, courage, and believing in what's right. Her moments of overcoming challenges, from media criticism to internal doubts, reminded me that every journey, whether of faith or personal growth, requires determination and an open heart. Candace's story serves as a powerful reminder that to find real meaning in life, we often have to face adversity head-on. Her experience is not only a message about personal strength, but also a call to connect with our community, embrace higher values, and pursue more meaningful goals in life. If this story inspired you as much as it inspired me, hit that subscribe button and join us here at Compatibility World. We're not just sharing powerful stories like this, but we're also exploring life lessons that help us grow every day. Remember, every journey starts with a small step. Don't forget to ring the bell to stay updated with our latest content. Love.